Alright guys, we're back at it. I'm going to answer the questions that you submitted to me through YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter. And if you want to take your finances to the next level and hit every single financial goal you have, make sure to go to the show notes below and book a free call with my team. We'll check to see if you're qualified for Budget Dog Academy that saves the average student an extra $20,000 per year. Okay, so our first question is from Jason Junkins. Is it better to pay off your house early or invest heavily into the stock market? Well, let's talk about this one. As you guys know, we paid off our house early at the age of 29 years old, and it was very controversial. We had a low interest rate. We decided to pay it off early, but the math ended up working in our favor, luckily, although it was not intended, that because of the timing we paid it off at the very top of the market, we kind of locked in that fixed small return, but then the market dropped and we had an extra mortgage payment to invest. So it worked out for us. Now, for the vast majority of people, if you're trying to play it from a math perspective game, you're probably going to lose if you decide to pay off your mortgage early, assuming it's a very low interest rate. Now, with rates at where they are right now at 7-8% plus, you might want to consider paying off your mortgage early for sure. The debate is, hey, could I invest that money into the market, make more as a percentage or return over the long haul, maybe 15 to 20 years or whatever, because most people aren't going to pay off their mortgage in like a 2-year period like we did. So typically it's a 15, 20 year project, obviously maybe a 30-year term initially that you pay off in 15 or 20 years, and that's kind of a decision that you have to make. Depending on your interest rate, you got to think this way. So typically the market's going to return maybe 8 to 10%. So if you have a fixed guaranteed 7% mortgage, it makes it a lot bigger of a conversation to say, hey, could I lock a piece of that in? And the other thing is you don't have to always go one way or the other, which is something that people don't understand. So let's just say you have an extra $1,000 and you've decided to at least invest 15% of your gross income before paying this off, which I always recommend. Of course, if mortgages get to 12%, that's a different story, but right now where they are, I'd say at least invest 15% of your gross income. And then anything over and above that, I think it's at your discretion, because I think you're making a good decision for your family one way or the other, and it's just more so priority at that point in time. So I think that's the way you got to think about it, but there's no like definitely invest it all or definitely pay off your mortgage with it all. I think it's a decision with education that you can make. In the top right hand corner, I'm going to provide you guys with a really good video of how to actually make this decision with actual tools and templates to do so. Our second question is from Mike Alarcon at Live Plan Win. While 401ks have been hit hard in 2022, do you think the 401k or index funds win in 2023? Good question, Mike. I don't know, and neither does anybody else. Here's my guess. Here's my assumption. I think the market will stay rocky for at least into mid-2023. I think the economy is going to stay rocky until then. I think a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. I think unemployment's going to go up. I think near the back end of 2023, I think we start to see the market kind of do a recovery. But again, I could be wrong. That's just based on the facts that I see in things I know. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on those same facts I have. Plus, they might have more information. This is why you can't guess or time the market bottom or the market top. And it's a waste of your time. So if you're in index funds, here's my rule of thumb that always works. Dollar cost average over the long haul. No matter if the market's up here, the market's down here, or it's in the middle. Just go ahead and dollar cost average the entire time, and you're gonna get really, really solid returns, and you don't have to worry about this type of question. But fair question nonetheless. So our third question is from Tremaine TG. So what's good debt? How much cash flow income should you have to utilize debt, real estate funds, question mark. Okay, so here's how I interpret this question is, what's good debt? So I'm assuming what he means by that is like, how do you define a bad debt, a consumer type debt, versus a good debt, maybe like a rental property debt? The way I actually look at debt, guys, isn't good or bad. I think obviously we know, rental property is going to be an attached asset to that debt. It's going to hopefully cash flow. It's going to appreciate. It's going to, you have depreciation benefits. You have all these sorts of benefits built into that type of asset. And we know like something like consumer debt, maybe like a Best Buy loan or a bed loan, like I once had one time in my life, sadly enough. There's no asset or cash flow produced from it. So typically, if I'm going to actually take on debt, which I do not have, obviously, as you learned in the beginning, I paid off my house, is it will be for an asset that actually cash flows. Some people make the argument a student loan is good debt. I disagree, because obviously it's provided that income that you've gotten from the degree that you got, and that's great. But going forward, it's just going to sit there on your balance sheet as a liability for a long period of time until it's paid off, and it's not going to actually produce any additional cash flow outside of your job, obviously. So I would pay off something like that. I think it's a matter of preference. And then the second piece of it was how much cash flow income should you have to utilize debt. So typically the mortgage industry won't let you go over like 40% roughly debt to income. I would typically try to keep it pretty low on the low side, because the thing is, like, in a booming economy, everyone's taking on debt, everyone over leveraging themselves and going up to a little too high. And the second a recession time comes or something, a pullback of some sort, people start to get fearful. And if you have a bunch of debt tied up, there's too much risk at stake a lot of times. And I would make sure that you could literally pay that debt off if the worst of the worst came. Or let's say you have a rental property and you don't have tenants, or you can't find tenants, or you're having issues in that department. I would want to make sure that I could actually cash flow that payment and feel very comfortable, but at the same time use leverage if you feel that's the right route for you. So I think it's a big question to ask yourself, but I think in general, do not over leverage yourself. Don't ever go over 40%. I would lean towards the lower end of that, 0 to 40%, but I think it's also personal preference, and I think income plays a role in it too. Okay, so John J. Farb asks, best way to track day-to-day expenses and receipts. You have your answer in Budget to Financial Freedom. My Excel tracker, guys, within my course is top of the line. My whole entire course will walk you step by step of how to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Excel in a manual process is a little better. At the same time, I make it a very automated process. We want to make sure we're planning or budgeting before the month begins, and we're putting those in Excel so we actually see it and feel it. And then when we actually spend it, then we actually assess what that spend was versus what we actually planned for. So I think it's a matter of just putting in Excel, and I have a great tool for you. I have a free tool, honestly, within my link in my bio as well, but I think Budget to Financial Freedom will get you there, no doubt. So my boy, Habits and Hustles, do you want to live in the metaverse someday? That's a good question. And as you guys know, I'm very bullish on the metaverse. Here's what I think about the metaverse in general though. I think the metaverse is an extension of our reality as we know it today. And so I think right now, as a YouTube video that you guys are watching, I think this is going to be an extension into the metaverse. And what do I mean by that? So I think at one point in time, or some point in time, we're gonna have like our IG lives or like YouTube videos, and we'll be in the same room presenting to each other, but it's in virtual reality. I think it's so obvious at this point that that is the future. I think really it's what we kind of do already, just on a more personal touch level. So could you imagine me talking to you right now face to face, really face to face, within a virtual reality versus through a screen? It would be a lot different of connection there. And I don't think, as long as it's not abused to the level that it could go, I think it's going to be an extreme benefit for society in general. I think there's a lot of benefits from the educational perspective. If people can feel, touch, I think there's going to be a lot of added benefit to learning something. Everyone learns different ways, and when the teacher just writes things on a whiteboard, not everybody connects. But I think there's going to be opportunity within the educational space or gaming space even too, to let the metaverse play out. I could be wrong, but it's kind of hard to think otherwise at this point with all the education I have on the metaverse. And that's why I'm so bullish on Meta as being kind of the front runner into that space with so much cash flow on hand. We're all taking bets, right? We're all just predicting the future with all the facts that we have present today. None of us actually know what's going to happen, but it seems as almost like a foregone conclusion that it will be something in the future that we're going to optimize. Now, as far as living in the metaverse, that's why I wouldn't live in the metaverse. Like, I don't think anyone's going to live in the metaverse. I think it's impossible. I think we're all human. We all have our needs, obviously, like, you know, food, shelter, and clothing that will be in real everyday life. People aren't going to go away from that, but people crave communication and connection, and I think the metaverse actually brings us closer than further away apart. I think a lot of people think this is like a tech and nerdy thing, but I think we're all on our phones all the time. We're on YouTube videos, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and stuff like that, and we have a lesser sense of connection through those vehicles than we would in the metaverse, where we're really interacting like together every single day. All right. This one's a little interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and skip this one, Andy. I don't know if I can speak on, I'm not an expert on this one, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip this one to the next. All right, and our last one I got from a great follower, and this was a response to my Instagram story about being a millionaire and the non-money reasons that I got to millionaire status by 30. Why don't you have a Lamborghini if you're a millionaire? This is a good question. So let's define what millionaire is first, right? Assets minus liabilities. So what you own minus what you owe. So I have a ton of content on what a millionaire is. Just being a millionaire solely doesn't really even give you the flexibility potentially to even buy a Lamborghini or to even say that you can afford a Lamborghini. It's more so from a cash flow perspective. Let's just say I could, and I could go buy that Lamborghini. What value does that bring to my life? And I think that's the question you need to ask yourself. We live in such a materialistic society that it drives me crazy. I don't don't need much to be happy. I have a paid off car, and just so you know, it's a 2011 Hyundai Sonata, and I'm perfectly content with it. I don't need to impress my neighbors. I don't need to impress the person at the light. It doesn't matter because I'm confident in what I drive, and it's just getting me from point A to point B, and I have zero payment, and there's less stress because I don't have to worry if someone wrecks into me or dings me in a parking lot. I can just kind of live my life, and all the repairs, all the maintenance, all the oil, all the gas, all that kind of stuff is going to be an added cost if you have something like a Lamborghini versus a Hyundai Sonata. I'm not to say it's wrong to have a nice car, but obviously a Lamborghini is on a whole nother level. And I think at the end of the day, I think people prioritize these types of things way too much. And even if I had 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, it's not something I would really think about, to be honest. Because if I wanted to go buy it, would that really bring value to my life? I always kind of operate from that standpoint. It's not necessarily the dollar, it's actually the value that something brings to my life. And if it's a positive impact, I will spend a lot of money on it. And one thing I'd like to spend money on is travel. So we've traveled all over the world and we love it, and we will continue to do it. But that's where I'm gonna spend my money. Something like a physical material possession doesn't bring me a lot of joy. So me personally, I'm not gonna do it. Do not think that becoming a millionaire all of a sudden makes you into this materialistic person that has to buy all these types of things, because that's actually not what the typical millionaire does. Go check out Chris Hogan's Everyday Millionaire Study, and you'd be surprised what the actual millionaire does on a daily basis. And there's some really cool facts of the everyday millionaire out there in that study. I'm gonna link it in the show notes below so you can read and listen to kind of more so what the actual millionaire does versus what's kind of portrayed to us in the media. And I hope that kind of helps your perspective as to why I don't have a Lamborghini, and honestly, probably won't ever have one. And so if you wanna take your finances to the next level and create a financial plan that takes you no more than 30 minutes per month and optimize all the things I always talk about to become a millionaire early on in your life, go ahead and book a free call in the show notes below. But I only want serious people. Do not book a call to pick my brain. That's not what it's there for. I'm really looking to take people to the next level, and I know I can with 130 students at this point in time and the results that I'm getting. So I hope to talk to you soon. Make sure you guys leave comments and questions below of anything we talked about today or anything else that you have, and I will make sure I answer that, and I'll see you in the next video.